Hey everybody, welcome to Personal Flash Paper. Rob and I are back.
Yeah, we're back. And there's been a little bit of excitement here at the household because there was a raccoon that tried to get in. Well, didn't try to get in, just got in front of one of the mutant cats, and the mutant cats have all rallied together to try to defend the house from the varmint invasion of the trash panda.
I do not think they're trying to defend it, Rob. I think trying to add to their team.
Could be one of those Hail Hydra Black Lotus plays.
Black Lotus is everywhere. Hydra.
Whatever.
All right, so let's just talk about what we're gonna do this today. All right.
This today.
This
Wow.
today.
It is, very late in the week, and we've had a week.
Yeah. So I think we'll do a little hobby time like we normally do. Talk about what's going on. We'll talk about a rule of episode, and we're going to do climb this time, just kind of touch on how that works. And then I thought for the main show topic, we would discuss the league that you and I are currently in, and maybe some of the things we have learned through the games we've played the last couple weeks, or couple days, really.
Yeah, really the last couple days. That sounds like a really good plan.
Cool. I actually would like to first start off by saying that Black Lotus has officially grown another member. Will and Jen Thompson has welcomed their first son, Max, to the world on Monday. So, peace, shout out, and congratulations to Will and Jen. It's super cool. Max was 4 weeks early, but he's healthy, and Jen is doing well, and they are at home. So congratulations to the both of you. That's really cool.
Yeah, congratulations, you guys. That was pretty awesome, blowing up the Facebook feed all over on different messages, different chats, and just huge shout out and congratulations to you guys. And speaking of, I believe Boistria posted that he also welcomed a new member to his clan.
Yeah, the new Infinity group is really multiplying here. I mean, it's gonna take a while to get up to speed, but I mean, Will did send a picture of Max already flipping us off, so he's on a good start.
Oh, he is a member of this team at least.
Yep, so that's always exciting. That's cool. So if you don't hear from Will for a little while, that's why. He may not be posting as much as he normally does. I'm sure his lack of sleep will catch up with him here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, probably. While I don't have any children of my own, I know that from the nieces and nephews and the parental units of said offspring, there's a lot of sleep deprivation that goes into raising the offspring.
Yep, it's good times though. Times. All right, Rob. So have you been doing any hobby? How's the status of the hobby area at the new location?
So the hobby area at Fort Baker here, the plans are underway. The measurements have been taken. Lumber has been identified for purchase, and I have the green light from the wife to start the construction aspect.
Did you have to agree to remodel the bathroom to get the green light, or did this come in already?
It came in, but we are meeting with Eduardo, our contractor guy, who did a great job on painting our basement before we moved in to Fort Baker here. And because of that stellar work that they did, there may be a bathroom renovation on the horizon that this guy is not going to do.
Nice. So have you got any hobby in outside of just planning? Done anything?
Other than just repairing models that have broke in transit between the house, the move, Wisconsin, and coming back to the house again. No, not really. No, not any real hobby per se. But I am itching to just get my hands on some files, some of that new contrast paint, and some brushes, and to get going.
Yeah, I forgot to look when we were at the store yesterday to see what contrast paints they have. There's a friend of Rob and I's who I'm going to teach to do some painting, and I was going to get some of those and play with them. So hopefully I could get him some of those to kind of make a few shortcuts. I mean, they are probably what I'm anticipating them to be, which is an over-pigmented, thicker wash. I think they'll work the same. They will not be a miracle paint. I don't think that as they were billed by GW, it was like, hey, all you gotta do is spray this on and wash this on and you're done. While that is the case, that's probably not going to be the level that you really want it to be or think it's going to be.
Or, I think you said it best the other day when we were talking about it in the office, is that it's a simple answer to a very complex question. And I think that really hits the nail right on the head of painting fast. Now, you said that you're going to teach somebody how to paint, or show them some of the tips and tricks that you've learned along the way, and you want to play around with these contrast paints. I think that it is another tool for painters and hobbyists to use. It's something that we can put into our toolbox to help us shave time from buying a miniature, assembling a miniature, and playing with a miniature. It's that gap. And in my opinion, if you can shave time off of one miniature by 20 minutes, over the course of several miniatures, you've got an hour and a half back, and that over time will lead to more models on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's gonna do is it's gonna allow somebody just to prime a light color, white, bone, whatever, and then pick a half dozen of these colors, wash them on, and actually have a probably fairly decent looking army. It's not going to be, people aren't going to come up to and be like, oh wow, that's great. It's not going to be a competition winning, but you're not going to be bare silver medal. I think that's kind of what the goal of those are.
I agree, and I also think that the Zenithal highlight, there's the traditional classic paint method that is clean, prime, paint, multiple shades, multiple layers. And I think what we're going to start to see is an amalgamation or an evolution of the painting styles that are all starting to merge, where it's, okay, I'm going to prime black, zenithal highlight white, use contrast paints, pick out my highlights, my colors, and then highlight from that in a more classical style, and really see some very unique styles come out of this, this heavier wash pigment.
I mean, it's possible. I don't think you're going to be able to do prime black, zenithal white. I don't think it's going to work that way. I think the black is going to be too black for these to actually function the way they're really supposed to function. I don't think it'll get the gradation. So you'll probably have to do, if you do black, you're going to do several layers of gray up to white, or you're going to start at a and go to like a bone color or something along those lines. I think you're going to see more of a mix of that. I don't think you're going to be able to go over black. I don't think the color is going to show through as the color is intended.
Yeah, and I have, so when we were at the store the other night, I talked to one of the local painters who had been messing around with the purple of the contrast paint line. And one of the things that they had noted was that it's going to be a mind shift in the way that you load, quote unquote, your brush. Just the tip, how much, liquid do you actually draw into your brush itself before it gets to the ferrule, and then the application. It's going to be a learning curve. And so I think you're 100% correct in that it's not going to be this end-all, be-all magic bullet to painting.
Yep. But, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing, just kind of playing with him. I don't think I'll get the whole line. I don't think it will replace my current method or any of that stuff. But I think what it may do is get some, civilians or even some board game pieces up to a painted standard.
Yeah, and from the videos that I've seen, and granted, these are brand new, so we don't know exactly what they're going to do for each individual person. But in one of the videos, they painted flat surfaces of a vehicle, and there was streaks and there was brush marks and things like that. And the whole time that this is going on, I'm like, this is not what it's intended for. You are literally using a stick that you got off of the ground as a baseball bat. It's a tool. Yes, it functions that way, but it's not its intended purpose. And I think that there's going to be to me, I still think that there's going to be a learning curve, and I think that there's going to be some changes to some people's paint style. I think that it's also going to be a great beginner's tool because as people are intrigued by miniature games, as they are looking at 40K, as they are looking at Infinity, as they are looking at whatever miniature game, board game that has miniatures, they do want to paint those. And to me, the inhibition has always been like, oh, I can't paint that well. And if this gets people into the mindset of, I can do this, and then I can learn from that, well, yeah, that's the beginner aspect in almost anything. You just got to dive in and then figure out how to swim.
Yep, I mean, that's true. That's just what you have to do.
Yep, just dive on in there.
Yeah, although I have been laughing at a lot of the pictures that are coming out now of people who have already knocked them over, spelt them on themselves, knocked over.
Oh my lord.
So it's been kind of funny. So just to keep that in mind, folks, they will knock over and spill, and they're GW bottles, so they're going to spill all over the place.
It's almost like they intend for them to spill so that you have to buy more. Just saying.
It's crazy. So,
crazy.
all right. Hey, Rob, we forgot an important step of our introductions.
Man, that's what editing's for.
Oh. So, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking currently a Boulevard Hefeweizen wheat ale, but I'm getting ready to switch because I'm almost done with that to a KC Beer Company De Bauer.
Nice. I am finishing off the last of my Gumption hard ciders. It's just so good.
Yeah, those
really
are so good.
Stuff. So, anyways, if you're a cider person, I'd highly recommend you check out Gumption hard cider. So, there you go. All right. So now we're back up to speed. Whew, that was close.
Whew. Yeah, man, it's bad when we get off schedule.
Yeah. So I have not been doing any miniature hobbying outside of I assembled a remote because I needed one on the proper base size for our league games. But it is summer, first month of summer for us, which means my daughter does musical theater camp, which means my wife and I get roped into doing some stuff. So I've been building bio-boards and painting lion masks. So
lion masks?
Mask, yep. So they're doing Lion King, and they had all the masks for all the lions and lionesses except for Mufasa, so that I built and painted that tonight. Yeah, tomorrow I'll do the mane and then cut the place in for the head, because they're head only masks. They're headpieces. They sit on the head. So that's tomorrow. Hopefully get it done this weekend because set building starts on Saturday, so I'll be doing that on Saturday. So, but
nice.
I have my hobby area is a huge mess right now with models and files and stuff that I've just pulled out and grabbed to piddle every now and then. But it needs definite cleaning before I can really get back to work.
Yeah, and even though the wife has signed off on the start of the project, I've got to move a bunch of the boxes that were just sat in the unfinished space that is going to be my hobby area. We moved one of the glass tables that used to be a TV stand. It still is a TV stand, but it doesn't have a TV on it, into another room, and I'm going to start moving stuff this weekend from the unfinished space into the storage area so that I can start the construction. And here's a thought for you. I've been talking with Josh of Warstein Studios and Scott Tipsword, and I think what I'm going to do is
we have to pay him a commission or a royalty every time we say his name.
No, I think every time that we say his name, someone has to do a shot of Malort. It's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, but not quite as good as An Angel Getting Its Wings.
Well, all right. I'll see if he agrees to that.
Well, he doesn't have a choice. But so I'm going to be moving this weekend taking stuff and boxes and cleaning the hobby space so that I can actually start construction in there. So that's my weekend plan for the hobby. Nice. But I was gonna start recording it, and I think it would be kind of cool to see from basic storage area with like a time lapse video of me just cleaning it out, building it up, and then actually start using it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. Should we talk about our rule of the episode?
Sure, you want to take a little break so that way I can replenish my beer, you can finish your gumption and get another beverage?
Oh, I just opened this gumption right before we started, so I've still got a little left.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was drinking beforehand. So, well, let's take a musical break and then we can bring it back with the rule of the episode.
Musical interlude.
Doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. Okay.
All right, I'm ready to talk about climb, the rule of the episode. All right, so climb. How do you get up a wall when there's no ladder? So, um, so basically, the idea is your model needs to be in base-to-base contact with the wall, right? And then you spend an entire order. It's a full order. It's the only thing you're gonna do, and your model base has to be touching the vertical surface, and then your model will move up to the so that's going to be the regular first move value.
Okay, say that again. You came in really broken on that.
So it's I don't even know what time what part I missed on. So the model has to be in base contact with the vertical surface. It has to spend an entire order, and it's going to climb up the wall. It can go. It's an entire first movement attribute in inches. You don't have to roll. You can just simply declare the skill and move up however many inches it is. Now, the one thing to remember is when you're moving your silhouette, the base of the silhouette is always touching the wall. So your guy's going to be standing at the base. You're going to declare a climb, and then basically they're just going to like Spider-Man walk up the side of a building, right? So the feet are going to be on the base vertical wall, and the head's going to be pointing directly away. So it's not going to be like, head to toe, up and down. It's basically going to be side to side.
Right. It's the cylinder of the silhouette essentially turns horizontal and moves up. And that's a really interesting mind shift, because most people would think that you climb hand, foot, as if you are scaling. But that's not how the rule as written works, or as I understand it works.
Yep, it just means they, walk up it. So it's going to change your silhouette as you're doing it. So you're, be careful of AROs, because while you are climbing or hanging out on a vertical surface, you do not get cover. You cannot claim partial cover mods.
And that also, let's say that you've got a first movement of 4 inches, right? And the wall that you are climbing is 6.5 inches. So you move your first 4 inches up and you're stuck. You're hanging out there.
Yep. You also need to pay attention to it. So let's just say the wall's only 2 inches that you're climbing up. You only climb up 2 inches and then you stop. You don't get the other 2 inches of normal movement. It's only to climb to the top. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily do. They'll move up and then, okay, that was only 3 inches. Then they'll climb over. Then they'll, or whatever it is. And that's not actually how it works. It's just you're climbing up however many inches it is, and then you stop even if you have additional movement left. So if you have something that has like a movement value of 6 and your wall is 4 inches, you climb up the 4 inches and then that's it. You don't get the other 2 inches of movement.
Not even to pop up over the top.
Well, yeah, it does count that. So it does take you from the base to the top, but you can't like pop over the top and then keep walking. But yeah.
Yeah, because and the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because in my game that we'll get to, my second game of this week, I had an airborne ranger that came on, and I had plenty of orders, and I needed to, after the game was over and we were kibitzing, it came to my attention that I could have used the climb skill, burned 2 orders to get up the side of the building, and then have a superior tactical advantage in stripping orders from my opponent's pool. And I didn't do that. And so it's important, one, to understand how climb works, but two, it's also super important to talk about your game in an after action report sort of style of, if I would have done this, if I would have thought about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think always looking over the game is helpful. Another thing to think about while you're climbing, if you are stuck, say the wall is 6 inches high, you only have 4 inches of movement, you're stuck 4 inches up. In the reactive turn, you actually do not get an ARO. You're just there.
You're just there hanging out.
Yep. Now there is a special skill called Climbing Plus, and that actually alters some of the rules of climb. It still is an automatic, but what it does is it takes the climb skill from being an entire order to being a short movement. So you could essentially climb up 4 inches, and then then you could shoot, if you reach the top, or if the wall was 6 inches, you climb up 4, and then spend the second half to climb up the additional 2.
Yeah, and Climbing Plus, you see that, with a lot of the super sneaky or super fast robots. And, I've used it to hang out on the side of a wall as like an ARO piece, because it gives me a different angle with a different silhouette, as opposed to a silhouette 2 that's just hanging out there not being able to do anything.
Yep. While Climbing Plus still cannot benefit from the partial cover, they do get the ARO in the reactive turn as normal, despite the fact that they're holding onto a vertical surface.
Yep, they're special trained, or they got special legs.
Yep. So, all right. Yeah, there's a lot of uses to climbing and Climbing Plus that I think they get overlooked a lot, because people are like, well, I need to go around here. It's an entire order. The only thing to really watch out for is AROs, right? It's an entire order. So if you move the top of the building and somebody can see you now, you do not get to dodge. I mean, you're just eating whatever they decide to do as their ARO. If it's shoot at you, then you're going to eat those shots. So you kind of have to think a little bit more about the position you're going to be in once you move.
Yep. And that's one of the things that I noticed, at least in this situation in my second game this week, is that if I would have climbed up to a certain point, I would have been completely out of line of sight from all the other opponents that I needed to kill. And so I could have popped up and used the rest of the climb skill, not taking any AROs, and then gone on a murderous rampage. But I didn't do that.
All right, so let's switch and talk about it in practicality purposes. So let's go ahead and just talk about your game there, and then we'll backtrack into the league. So go ahead and talk about that game and where it would have come in and how you could have better used climb.
So this was the second game of our league that Andrew Haar, the War Corps out of Lawrence, Kansas, is running, and we are following the Daedalus Falls scenarios. And so because there's
no S. It's
Daedalus
Fall.
Daedalus Fall. Oh,
It's Daedalus.
Huh,
Yeah.
okay.
Because it's a fall of the jump gate.
Well, yeah. I'm so used to falls being part of a city name that it just made sense. So anyway, it's the second game, or the second scenario in the Daedalus Fall book. And I don't even remember what the name of the mission was, other than it's the second one, and it's like looting and sabotage. So my opponent, Mike, who's a really good player, brought a dual tag list. And I thought playing USARF with a Minuteman Link team and some snipers that I would have a hard answer for that. I didn't. I couldn't make my armor saves, and in the second turn, I spent 3 of my command tokens to move 3 guys out of the second group into the first group, so that I'd have a full order pool. And it wasn't until after the game was over that I noticed that the main way that Mike ran his force was having a 5-man link team and a baggage bot and a Fugazi bot because he was playing military orders. As basically his order generation. And where I had brought my airborne ranger in, I could have very easily have taken those 9-10 orders and used 2 of those orders to get the climb up to the highest point of a building where his, order pool essentially was sitting, and then be in my good range with the submachine gun of the airborne ranger and burst 3 all day long. And probably taken, I may not have survive the onslaught, but I would have been able to at least break that link team, to strip some orders away from Mike so that his tags weren't as effective as they were. So, lessons learned.
Yeah, and so I guess that really just, how to use climb is really just how do you get yourself in a different position. Maybe get yourself in a position to do some damage to the enemy's units, and they're prepared for you to come around a wall, but you can essentially go over the wall and be out of their line of sight until you want to engage them.
Yeah, because Mike had essentially set up that link team and the Fugazi bot and the baggage bot and everything over in that corner specifically as a Van Zant counter. And I didn't bring Van Zant. So the airborne ranger would have had full use of, the climb, the tactical advantage of, higher vantage point, and I didn't capitalize on it. I missed that.
Yeah, so well, that kind of brings me into something I want to talk about for the first game. Is so we so the first week of the league, Rob and I got teamed up, and we are paired up, excuse me. So we played, and we actually played at the office after work, and set it up. I'm playing a Akari company in this campaign, and Rob is playing USARF. We are allowed a spec ops. We started with 6 XP. So for Akari, that's a brawler. So I made him a brawler hacker with mine layer, which is really nice, actually. A combo of stuff. Rob forgot that he was allowed a spec ops, so he did not bring one in his first game. And he didn't read it had been a while. We have 2 weeks to play the game. We didn't get a chance to play the game until the last day of the 2-week period. So we just kind of rushed to get everything set up and going. And so it brings up, and the reason I want to bring this up, because you said Mike was prepared for Van Zant, right? So when we played, I looked for Van Zant, right? So you set up, anytime I play somebody playing USARF, I typically set up to where I have some Van Zant preparations put into place. And what I have really started thinking, and Rob and I discussed this after our game, was, the threat of Van Zant, is pretty good, and he does a lot of work. He can, right? But a lot of people prepare for him. So those points can sometimes be better spent elsewhere. For example, in Rob's in my game, he probably would have been better use of his points, not bringing Van Zant, but bringing other camo tokens, other things that I have to figure out what they are, I have to try to take care of on my turn, and turtled up a little bit more because I was going first. If he'd have turtled up a little bit more and forced me to spend a bunch of my orders to come into the midfield, to come track his stuff out, to dig his things up, I would have had to fight through 2 blackjacks, one with a sniper rifle, one with a HMG, right? If there was a bunch of camo tokens, there could have been mine layers, there could have been, there's a bunch of stuff that could be out there I have to dig through. And then when Rob goes, I'm in his better range, and so he can come in and pick off my stuff because I'm going to be out of position a little bit more. Even at that point, if I had pushed up, if you do have anything that's like a Van Zant, the unknown soldier or unknown ranger or whatever he's called, or just a ranger coming in, that would actually be a better use then, because I'm going to be not as prepared or not as set up. There'll be more places for him to come in, and also you don't have to use Van Zant to come in the back edge deployment zone. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's Van Zant, I've got to come in behind you because that's going to be the most deadly. But it may not be, right? If he walks in and is seen right away, well, that doesn't do him any good.
Exactly. And, talking about your game and my game, our week one game, so to speak, one of the things that Mike pointed out in my second game is I'm being too aggressive with my deployment. I'm putting out pieces that are better reactive pieces and not supporting them. So like in our game, I left my AP HMG Blackjack kind of out on his own. He wasn't as supported, and I needed him to be pulled back, like you said. I needed him to be turtled up so that in my active phase, I've got that burst 4. And to your point of pushing forward and not using Van Zant, having more camo markers, you've got to come root me out. And so then the Blackjack APHMG has a distinct advantage because he's armor 5. Armor 5 and, in good range, rolling 4 dice, that's really tasty. And, I don't know if it's playing right after work that is a detriment to me because I'm so mentally tired from the workday. I don't know if that's an excuse or if it's a crutch or if it's a truth or a combination of all three. But to my thinking, I need to play more games when I am mentally tired so that when I am fresh, I have a better chance of, pulling out a victory.
I mean, that is always true. The more games you play, the more this stuff's going to click in your memory. Also, if you have a really rough day, that your mental game's not going to be as strong. If go play a tournament in the third game of that tournament, you're probably not going to be as strong as you were the first game, right? Because you're kind of drained a little bit more. But one of the things that I was thinking about too is when you're in my game. Now you had 2 order pools, but it was more like 1, right? It was really almost like a limited insertion. You were going second. So I really think that because you did have me set up first, right? Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you could have turtled. I think a lot of times, especially limited insertion, if you're going to go second, if it's not an objective grabbing, like if I'm not going and doing the supplies where you got to open a crate and get it back, if it's one where you either got to control something, you've got to kill stuff, I think that's whoever's going second is probably in most cases better off really just kind of turtling up and hiding their dudes, forcing the opponent just to spend their first turn just moving, right? Because then on the second person's first turn, they essentially are going to spend their first turn being able to do an alpha strike because the player 1 was not able to because you had everything hidden and tucked away. So it's almost like player 2 gets 3 turns where player 1 only has 2.
2, yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it as well.
Yeah.
So what about your second game?
So my second game was against Clayton, and Clayton is very good. He's a very solid player. He thinks quite a bit about what he's doing. He's playing Spiral Core right now, so it's still fairly new to him. We set up. I made him deploy first, so he went first. I did turtle a little bit, but I have some pretty good ARO pieces. I had a War Core and a Flash Pulse bot. I have a 5-man core that has the Brawler with MSV2 and a sniper rifle, multi-sniper rifle. It has a Tonka with Flamen Spear in it. I have a Sierra, so my total reaction HMG, right? So I have some fairly decent ARO pieces, so I had them out. But in this scenario, you got one model that could deploy on the 4 inches of the opponent's table edge. So you can put one model in your deployment or enemy's deployment zone. Now, it couldn't be the last model you placed, and you had to make a whip roll. Clayton put 3 camo tokens in and around my deployment zone. Right? So I'm like, all right. I placed an Alpha Seed in his deployment zone. That was Alpha Seed Mine Layer, so I knew it was just going to be a problem. Like he's okay, you're going to have to spend orders on this. It's going to be an issue, right? That was the whole point of that. It's an HMG, so um, it's it's better at long range, but it's an HMG. It's got a heavy pistol. He's got mine layer. He's got smoke grenades and um, a regular grenade launcher, smoke grenade launcher, and regular grenade launcher. Right? So he's got a bunch of tools. Plus, he's armor 5, 2 wounds. Right. So it's just gonna be something he's got to spend orders on, uh, which is exactly what it did. Now I counter deployed Clayton's camo tokens with my spec ops, who again was said was hacker with mine layer. So basically, I put him up on a building, right? So the 3 camo tokens were at the base of that building. They couldn't really see him anyways, and then I put him basically a mine right there. So if any of those camo tokens activate, they're gonna get a mine, right? So basically, what it did is it made that, which I knew there was a couple things it could be. So I knew that the chances of that were not gonna. It was just not gonna do anything, uh, just because it was gonna eat a mind, and which it did never move. He never activated it. Never came out of camo, so it was never an issue.
Yeah. And for those of you at home that are curious how Clayton was able to set up 3 camo markers in Ryan's deployment zone, it is part of the risky deployment zone or risky zone that is part of the scenario that is the second mission in the Daedalus Fall.
Yep. It's actually a pretty cool thing. So Clayton was playing with some toys he hadn't played with. He went first and he used Nema and the dude that gives you the tricore. I can't remember what it is. And so basically his triad comes pushing up, and he got rid of a lot of good pieces. Came in to attack basically my antenna, which was a 3 structure, 8 arm thing that had to be hit with anti-material. Clayton did mess up. He thought he had the Spitfire Nema, but it was actually just a viral combi, so it wasn't as effective as he was hoping it'd be. He got up there. Armor is within 3 of my bots that had repeaters, so I was flash pulsing her and trying to mobilize her. I flash pulsed her once, never immobilized her, but Clayton basically kind of ran out of orders, and then I dropped in 3 Yan Yans. I came around with my Rushi that had marksmanship and took out the triad with a Nema that was way up in my deployment zone. I took out a bunch of his other pieces, and then on my turn 2, yeah. So Clayton's turn 2. He was really in a bad spot. I did not have a lot of great options either on for some of his key pieces to get rid of. So it was really kind of an interesting mental exercise. But on my turn 2, I was able to take a Yan Yan, move it up, get it right up in his grill, and tanked so many armor saves, or Clayton missed him, that he actually was able to get in base contact with the Clayton's antenna, and then I just beat on it with my double action
close combat weapon,
and then dropped it, right, and then spent no more orders on that guy. So basically, at that point, I'm literally standing 3 inches from one of Clayton's dudes who is in symbiote armor inactive from a couple chain rifle shots, but they're like just face to face, right? At that point, Clayton was, his final turn was really trying to figure out how he could try to make some orders. So he basically just had to kind of make a run to flip a switch. As we did it, it was like, well, it's not really going to matter because I'm going to have enough orders to come back and flip the switches back. So at that point, we kind of knew I had it kind of wrapped up. And so the game ended up being a 9-0 victory me. The bad part about that is that 9-0 makes it look like I just trounced all over him. Case it was really some very interesting things that happened on Clayton's first turn, and then my first turn, and then his second turn and my second turn that really forced some very interesting decisions that we just weren't quite sure of how we were going to get out of the predicaments we were in. Like he got Nima up there and then was like, huh, dang it. I don't have enough orders to pull her back. I, you know, he's outstretched her. He's pushed her up too far. Um, Yet I had to deal with her, and I was kind of like, okay, how am I going to deal with her? What are my best shots here? He had Lamuette up on the building, and he actually ended up taking a shot and then dropping prone, which actually helped me out a lot because then I didn't have to deal with him for a while. But it was there's very interesting mental exercises that went in to playing that game that I do think that that's the funny thing about that is the score doesn't really um, show.
It
Now,
doesn't
some of the
reflect
takeaways that I
exactly
had,
how the game, the ebb and flow of the game, and how close it was
yeah,
at any given time. Yeah,
yeah,
and
because it really was that Yon Yon tanking a bunch of armor saves and getting into combat. Because if he dies, my original thought process, I'm gonna get that Yon Yon up. He's gonna die, but I'm gonna take out these two models, and then the other Yon Yon's gonna be able to run up, and then he's gonna do the work. And I didn't have to run up the other Yon Yon. Right? I was just like, oh, all right. So this young man's just gonna do all of the stuff. All right. Well, that's neat. But I was expecting it to not be the case. I was expecting him to die. He should have died. I mean, he was armor 1 because of his thing, and at one time I got hit with a combi rifle and I rolled a 13. So because I rolled armor 1 on his booty chart, he actually passed the armor save. Right?
nice.
Yeah, I did have a bunch of remotes that passed breaker combi shots, which I think is what Nima has, breaker combi shot combi.
And
I
that
mean,
sounds right.
and so that's like, and he was like, that has a combi, that's a BTS of 3. I'm like, yep. And that one has a BTS of 6. I'm like, yep. And it's like, yep. Um, so there were just some things like that were kind of interesting. But originally, so I've been reworking my Akari list. Um, And so this one is built off of an idea I had that I'm still not 100% sure with, although it's played really well the last 2 games. Um, but I'm really debating the Link team in Akari. I think that may be a trap, that the Link teams are either the one I have, it's 5 models, right? It's a brawler sniper rifle with MSV. It's 3 Kisotsu regular dudes. Is that right? Something like that. 1 paramedic, I think. And I think the other 2 were forward observers, but I had to drop them down for points. And then the Tonko with the Flamen Spear and Contender, simply because I don't have the SWC for the missile launcher. But what's interesting is that Link team is pretty much mostly an ARO, right? The
Right.
Tonko is good in ARO. The sniper's good in ARO. Now, you can use the sniper, be aggressive at a range, but I'm also wondering if it's really is it better to be more aggressive and do a different, maybe just a triad that pushes up, uh, or if Akari really even needs the Link team. So that's just one of the things I'm thinking
I've
about.
always seen Akari as being something where link teams, or more appropriately said, is a triad of dudes or a duo of dudes, because you can have multiples, right? And I think that's how I always see the mercenary bands as being, or the non-aligned armies being.
Yeah, but a lot of the non-aligned armies have really interesting mixed Link teams.
True, true.
So, um, yeah, I don't know.
So in my first game, you pretty much trounced me, and it. I don't know, other than turtling up like we talked about earlier, and not bringing Van Zandt, bringing the camo markers. I think that my deployment is really what set the game into a negative tone for me and a very positive tone for you, because there wasn't any way that I could answer that first alpha strike, because you had, sliced the pie in such a manner to take out my ARO pieces, to take out my heavy hitters. And a very similar thing with my game against Mike. I was super aggressive with the pieces that I shouldn't have been aggressive with in my deployment. And while it took Mike several orders to, discover the camo markers, discover which ones were mines, which ones were actual hard cases or whatever, it was still a tactical blunder on my part to not hide more offensive pieces. Instead of hiding them, I had him out where he could take this one, slice the pie, take this one, slice the pie, and then eliminate all my heavy hitting threats. And so, it's humbling to get beat, 0-9 or 0-10 or 1-9. But at the same time, the more games you play, the more times you're going to be like, oh, I'll remember that aspect for next time. And to me, the problem that I have is when I don't play enough games back to back to back to back to back, that I have a hard time remembering those lessons. And that's just because, I'm me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always remembering the lessons, right? So I do a lot of times thinking about the game afterwards, or talking about the game afterwards. You and I did it for a bit. Clayton and I did it for a bit. And don't get me wrong, there were several times that the rolls were just in my favor against Clayton.
Oh yeah, dice are going to be fickle bitches. That is no doubt. And in my game against Mike, and I am not trying to detract anything away from his hard-fought victory, but I think I made one armor save. when you're not making your armor saves, it's just like, well, yep, there you go. And it wasn't like I was looking for a 17, 18 on the dice or higher. I was looking for an 8 or better, and just being like, whoop, 1, 2, 3. That guy's dead. Later.
Yep, and that stuff happens, right? That's part of the fun of the whole thing. Is just like weird stuff happens, like my Yan doing crazy things. Um, I think one of the things that it really makes me want to try is a dual Rushi,
Oh, that would be
MSV2
sick.
Spitfire. So the problem is that's 3 SWC, really 3.5, because you'll want a hacker to put the marksmanship on them, right? And then push them up, but and go crazy with them. But there are some negatives in that, because they do need to be midfield. They are on the bigger size base, so moving them around is going to be a little bigger threat. Again, that's a lot of SWC in what I feel is a SWC starved, especially if you want to take
Faction.
something like it's faction, because if you want to take an alpha seed, I want to take the HMG one or the heavy rocket launcher one. That's 2 SWC, and that I really like. I really like that model. I really love that profile, and so it's really, really difficult to get that to work the way you want it to, with all of the things that you have to be prepared for it to take care of.
Yeah, and I also really like playing the factions that we quote unquote normally play, right? In games that are very similar to ITS sorts of missions, but with the League running from Daedalus Fall, we've got that freedom to try things, right? We've got the freedom to, step out of the comfort zone that we normally would try to, bring a, very competitive list to an ITS event. And with the League and the way that the League is set up, that everybody's, basically playing each other, and there's no real, set tournament bracket, if you will, that it allows us to try those different options. It allows, like you said, Clayton was playing things that he hadn't really played before. You're looking at different options for the Alpha Seed. I'm trying different options with the hard case, something that I don't normally do in an ITS event. I'm not bringing Van Zant. I think that the way that setup is for our league and the way that Corvus Belli has designed their fluff scenarios really lends itself to having more fun as a community.
Yep. I mean, let's face it, we're playing a game, right? That's intent is to be fun.
Oh, true.
So I think it's just mixing up. Now, I will say one of the things that was interesting is you and I played on what I refer to as the refinery table.
Which was different.
Yeah,
That table by itself, Ryan, I am not lying. It was a hard mental paradigm shift for this kid to wrap his head around.
Sure.
There's no right angles. And no right
so
angles means that it's odd.
Yeah, so for those of you listening, what it is that so basically I did this table and it was all like soup cans, like so big soup cans, a bunch of different size soup cans, PVC tubing, right? Some of it's stacked up so it looks like tubes in bundles, some of it are hooked together so it looks like it's running in. And that's really it. That's all that's on the table. My plan with that table was really like many of you long-time listeners will know, I try to get an entire table to fit inside of a single carrying box, Tupperware type, not Tupperware, but Rubbermaid type carrying box. So that all does that, it fits in there. And then I also wanted to make that table as cheap as possible. So again, that's just PVC stuff I had, right? Soup cans I just collected. You could do it a bunch of other stuff. Then I had some plastic card pieces that I glued to some of the soup cans to kind of break it up and visually give them a little different look. Spray painted them, up some cheap wash, threw it on there, right? So I even have two colors. So like I'll spray it all gray, and then I'll tape it off, and then I'll spray it red. Just to kind of do that. And so that was the whole point. So that whole table, including the mat that I bought for, was probably $100. Right, and that includes the mat, which I bought, which is probably a $50 to $75 mat. So that was kind of the idea, is just to make this cheap table. But as Rob says, there's no right angles. So it is weird. It does force a different game mentality, which I actually really like. Which actually has brought me to some of the other thoughts of like, we see a lot of cities. Right, in Infinity, a lot of people are playing over cityscapes. So I really have started thinking about what are other things we could do. So I'm thinking about, the forest table. I've actually thought about, so there's people have done some interior shipped, tables, so there's a bunch of walls. And I actually thought about, it's like, what if it's like an underground, like mine?
A mine.
A type of table. So basically it's like, and ravines and basically it's almost like a maze that you're running around with. Would be kind of cool also.
Yeah, I've thought about something along the lines of the U.S. Southwest. The painted desert, high rocks, high buttes, mesa type outcroppings, and putting down satellites for a demo table. And that's something that's on my list to try to get done before 2019 expires.
Oh, well, you better get on it.
Yeah, well, I got to get a hobby space on that.
Yeah, we're over halfway through.
Tell me about it. Time's clicking away.
Well, I guess technically we're not over halfway through, right? We'll be over halfway through at the end of this month.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got the shipping table that I've got all the pieces for that I need to put together. And I've a couple other tables. Once the summer season of theater is over, then I'll have a little more hobby time. Although there'll be some trips in there. We'll take some of that. But I like the idea of doing something that's going to make you think about the game differently. Let's say changing the points limit. So say it's going to 200 points for a couple games, right? So then you have to break out of your normal list build. If let's just say it's even going to 400 points, the same idea, right? If it's changing the scenarios up, so you're not just playing the same ones. There's a whole bunch of them that are in the ITS, right? There's a whole bunch of them that are scenario driven that you could play. I find a lot of people play the same ITS ones, so mixing those up quite a bit would be helpful. The Spec Ops, throw something else in there. This campaign, we're playing different scenarios we wouldn't normally play. Terrain is going to change things up, so I think that's interesting. I would think there's a whole section of terrain rules that we don't use very often, so I think that would be interesting. Just kind of, because what you're going to do, right, is you're going to play with more of the rules of the game, but also you're going to break your thinking habits. So instead of, let's just say, for example, well, I have a TR bot, so he's always going to sit up on this rooftop building, shoot stuff that comes down these alleyways, right? Well, what if you're playing in a saturation zone or in a scenario that has, like, our next Daedalus fall, excuse me. Well, I was thinking Daedalus's fall, but the I think it's any shots over 32 inches automatically fail. So if you do some visibility, things like that, well, then you drop the TR bot down to the ground and actually move him as a mobile piece, which is how I've been using a TR bot since I started playing Onyx.
Yeah, they combine.
It did not sit high up on a rooftop. It typically sat on the ground level. It typically went out and then attacked until it died, and then I activated another piece.
Yeah. No, I think changing the way that you think about the game, changing the way that you play the game, and then playing games, that's the fundamental, basis of all the learning that you're going to do. I think that all three of those things will in turn make you a better player. Playing people that play the game better than you do will help make you a better player. All in all, it's all about the community policing itself, building itself, and then propagating itself. If that's,
I think you need to say self a few more times.
Well, Bill Self, Tyler Self, the whole Self clan. I think I'm just going to edit this out.
All right. Yeah, so I think that I like the campaign. We are doing it on a 2-week rotation. There's actually going to be 3 weeks over the 4th, just because a lot of people aren't going to be able to play that week, which will be nice to have an extra week. Although now that I think about it, I'm going to be out of town the week after the 4th, so I'm going to have to get my game in early.
Yeah. Playing games in the summer, or running a league, I should say, is hard. And hats off to Andrew Haar for running the league, and more power to the people that are actually playing in the league, because it takes a commitment, and it's tough because you are, like you said, you're traveling. You and I both, the reason we got paired and the reason it took us 2 weeks to play the game is because we had to work, late nights because we had new people coming in. That's the way that our company does things, or gives us the opportunity to do things. And it's hard during the summer because, there's so much to do.
Yep. Although I will say we had 8 people there last night. So that is really nice because it's a nice day out. It wasn't raining, right? It was still bright out. So that was actually, having that many people. And one person who's new started, 2 weeks ago, bought Spiral Core, had it all assembled.
A week. Yeah, he bought Spiral Core last week.
Yeah, had it all assembled, ready to go play. Another guy who typically works on Wednesdays, who has actually had a couple Wednesdays off, this came in and played again. I know he won't be there next week, but so it was actually pretty good for a
for a normal Wednesday night in the middle of the summer.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to talk about for the games?
No, just that I'm super happy to be playing the games, and I love the actual after action reports with you, and then coming home, kind of doing a list, and then playing the game and seeing, oh, I missed XYZ, talking about it with Mike, confirming, yeah, you were super aggressive with this piece. You were super aggressive with this piece. You should do this thing because of these reasons. I really enjoy the kibitzing afterwards.
Yeah, I do too. There are times that mentally I can't really. I'm like, I can't. I don't know what you're saying. It sounds like Charlie Brown because I just don't
Oh
have
yeah,
it in
it's
me
all
to
clicks
talk.
and whistles at this
Yeah,
point in the day.
but I do, and like I said, a lot of times when I'm going to bed, my wife and I lay in bed. She'll fall asleep, and I'll have my iPad, and I'll like be looking at Mayonet, playing with lists, and just kind of thinking about looking at like, okay, what other options do I have for this? And one of the things that I realized after our game and then after my game with Clayton was like, I don't have an engineer. I have a Rushi, I have the Sierra. The Rushi is the MSV 2 Spitfire. The Rushi or the Sierra is the Total Reaction HMG. I have the Pathfinder drone bot, which is the Ford Observer Combi, and then the Fugazi drone bot, which is the um, just the flash pulse bots. Right, I have 4 remotes, right, but I have no engineer, and 2 of those remotes are pretty good, right? So the Sierra and the Rushi. So if I had an engineer, uh, people are gonna be forced to spend extra orders to remove them from the table to make sure they don't come back up because they're
Yep.
that good of a piece. So I think that that was something I had to start looking at. I have made the change. I do have an engineer in the list. However, it is actually my spec ops who has 25 experience points now.
Jesus.
So my brawler spec ops is Whipped 15, Armor 3, BTS 6. He is a mine layer. He has a hacking device. He's an engineer, and he has mimetism. So it's really pretty funny. Uh, but like I really like after I was like when I did the hacking device mine layer, which was the first things I did, I was like, oh, I really like that combo. Like that's a really powerful combo.
Yeah, and I've looked at Mine Layer for USARF, and using Mine Layer in conjunction with Hardcase and their ambush camouflage, which we talked about on the last episode, it really forced Mike, in my opinion, to stop and be like, I'm going to discover that camo marker. I'm going to discover that camo marker. So it did make him burn orders, and he was running a limited insertion military orders list, which really, slowed him down. If I would have deployed a little bit different, it would have been a much tighter game than what it was. So
yeah, the Alpha Seed also has mine layer. So really quickly, mine layer allows you to deploy a mine, whatever the mine is the model carries, during deployment. Spend an order on it. It has to be within 8 inches of the model with mine layer. It has to be legally deployed. So if your model has forward deployment, then the mine can be forward deployment. Then the mine has to be deployed legally in your deployment zone. So I actually was looking at because Akari can take the Libertato Fishman, who has mine layer. Now it's 1 SWC, and I don't have the SWC because Akari's SWC starved. But in this, it would give me the Alpha Seed mine layer, the what's the word for? My Spec Ops mine layer, and the Liberato mine layer, right? Which would be for deployment. So I could really, essentially throw 3 camo or 4 camo markers out there, and 3 of them being mines, and 1 of them being a light shotgun and chain colt model. I mean, that would be defensively. That's a pretty tricky thing to navigate through.
totally, and the more and I think that lends weight to the ambush skill, right, that we talked about, because you're dropping multiple. I mean, I had 2 combat groups in my game against Mike, and I want to say that it was 9 and 6, and of the 9 and 6 combat groups, right? So we're talking 15 orders or 15 dudes. There was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 camo markers, and so Mike's doing the battle calculus as we're setting up. He's like, Okay, yeah, there are other things that I don't know about, or are there? And the camo markers and the ability to kind of slow Mike down, that was a moral victory for me. And for me, I got to take moral victories where I can get them.
Yep. Yep. I mean, anytime you can, especially if you're doing poorly, anything you can do to test something, try something, those count as victories. If you're just getting lambasted, try to do something different that you may not normally have done with a model, just to see. Maybe use a secondary skill or secondary item equipment that they have that you've never used before, just to see if you can get it to do anything. Just so you can get something out of the game.
Yep, got to get something out of nothing.
Something, nothing from nothing is nothing. But you gotta have some.
If you want to get with me.
All right.
All right.
All right. So, I think that'll kind of do it for our little main topic show. That's just kind of, after action. I think it's helpful thinking about through. I mean, you're gonna get frustrated on some game. That's gonna happen, right? But so if you really think about what steps could you have done differently, you can't always blame the dice, right?
Oh, I can. Trust me, motherfucker. I can. I will.
Yeah, but
Dice are fickle bitches.
But you shouldn't always blame the dice, because it's not always the dice. It also takes away some of the skill from your opponent, right? He's like, well, I would have won, but the dice. That's your opponent was played in that too.
Yeah, because if I would have made armor saves, it still wouldn't have detracted anything from Mike's game and the ass whooping that he gave to me. I mean, he was literally like, "Oh, you dropped this. Here's your ass back."
Yeah. I will say that, the biggest thing you can do to help improve your game is actually just to play the game.
Agreed. And I think also you hit on it when, the wife turns in for the night and you pull out your iPad. You are thinking about the game. You are thinking about, okay, at the midfield, the Rushi. And if I have a hacker and I put marksmanship level 1 on him, it gives him shock. And those are the things that you have actually thought about in designing your list. Me, on the other hand, I don't do that. And so I learn the hard lesson of, a Rushi with marksmanship level 1, that's a son of a bitch. And the reason I say that is because my last game in Adepticon, well, that's what the guy used against me, and it was brutal. And then Scott Tipsword at Mission Critical used it against me, and then you used it against me. And so now it's like, Rushi with a hacker. That's a thing.
Yep. If you start seeing the combination of the same stuff a lot, that tells you that, especially considering it's across different sectorials and different.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so that's when you know. So that's a good thing. That's something you got to get rid of when you see it pop down now. So.
Oh yeah, it's yes, it is that. It is target number 1, maybe 2.
Yep, and I forget. I played a game. Oh gosh, I can't remember where it was, but I actually spent extra orders going around and sneaking up and actually taking out like 2 key pieces from somebody, and this was either Mission Critical or before that. And they were like, well, crap. I'm like, yeah, I know what those 2 guys do. I was like, I can't let you spend orders on them. So I had to spend all of my orders getting around to remove those models. I just had to.
Yeah. And, to that point, when people talk about Sofatech, we'll be talking about, like, there was a game where Mike was playing Dan here in our local area. And Mike was like, yeah, Sofatech, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, Dan, who is a newer player to the Kansas City area, I was like, hey, Dan, ask Zach about Sofatech. And so Dan literally turns around in a crowded game room and is like, hey, Zach, what about Sofatech? And Zach's response is, kill that bitch. And the reason that Zach says that is because when I was playing Aleph, I used Sofatech to devastating effect with Zach. And he's like, oh, I'm killing that bitch every time. I don't care if I lose this game. I'm killing her.
Yeah, I think that's also something we will do, right? Is first you'll have a bad game or a model. For instance, for example, I think it was the last Walpaca. Tor Swanson had a Yan Yan that just screwed me up so horribly that every other time I was like, I played him again, like in probably like a year later. He used the same model, but it was actually a Boshi bazooka is what he used it as. And I still spent my time killing that model because I was like, yeah, I'm killing that dude.
Yep,
I'm
killing that
still.
dude.
It's been a year and I'm still butthurt over that guy. So I think sometimes that those personal thing, but also that adds flavor to the game. It's kind of funny for us.
Yep. So I think we have beat this dead horse to where the meat is pretty tender now. So we should just throw it on the barbecue and call it a game.
All right, sounds good. I do want to throw something out there. If for any of you listeners want to support Rob and I, um, Rob and
Oh
I
yeah,
are
yeah.
doing a thing for our work where we are actually doing fundraising for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, known as their Summer Bowl. So if you go onto your Google and put in Summer Bowl for kids, it should come up to the Big Brothers Big Sisters website Summer Bowl thing. You can click on the I think it's donate. I have it up here, but I'm past that. Yep. So you can go to the support.bbbskc.org, click the donate button, and then it will say search for participant. Now, I don't know if Rob is signed up yet or not, but I am. So if you
I
type
have
in,
not yet.
yeah, if you type in my first name, Ryan, my last name, Moore, and do search, I'm the only one that shows up. My team name is Parks and Regs because we are Cardinal Health Regulatory Sciences and we like Parks and Rec. So that's where that comes from. And then you can hit donate now and enter anything. Even $1 is great. My goal is actually $300. I'm at 120.
Wow, you
Last.
overachiever.
Well, so we had a local guy give me $100. So I was like, well, I have one donor give me $100. I'm gonna up my goal. So
Yeah, I need to sign up. I've been slacking
yeah,
with
I
other
was
things.
too. That's why I kind of pushed it. I'm gonna actually wait till this episode comes out, then I'm gonna pop it up on the PFP. Don't feel obligated. Again, I don't get any of this money. Rob doesn't get any of this money. This goes 100% to Big Brothers Big Sisters. If you want to know more about what they do, please search and look at their site. It's actually a really good program. One of my very good friends has been a big for a kid now who graduated college this year.
Wow.
Yeah, the graduation rate, the high school graduation of kids that are in the Big Brother Big Sister program is phenomenal. They do a lot to support their people. A lot of the kids who go through the program actually come back and work and for them and actually be bigs themselves. It's a really cool program. So if you are so inclined and want to help me raise money for them and help Rob raise money for them, please do so. That would be great.
Yep. Wow. That's like a feel-good Hallmark movie moment right there.
Yeah, I mean we can do good things sometimes. It's not all butt jokes and
Fart noises.
fart noises. Yeah.
95.9% of the time it is. The other, percents are filled with, love and, caring.
Yep. There's some love and caring. All right. I think that's all I got. Rob, you got anything else?
Nope, I'm all good, man. I'm done with this second beer, so I'm good.
All right. We are off a week. We are trying to do every 2 weeks. This was the third week. Sorry about that. We are still going to try to put out content as much as we can. We do have 2 special guests lined up in the upcoming future. I will say, if you have not looked at the Infinity Defiant stuff, their renders are pretty
so sweet.
So check that out. That's all I got. Then I think that's all we have for this episode of PFP. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us on the Facebooks. You can send up smoke signals, and if the wind is right and the sky is clear, we will get those. Also, if you want to send Pony Express, then you'll need a time machine.
So what I think Ryan is trying to say is, if you want to reach out to us, there's the Facebook, there's Twitter at Flash Paper News, and then email personalflashpaperinfinity@gmail.com. Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, yeah, there's that, but I mean, if they have a time machine and want to send us Pony Express, I mean, that's kind of cool, but...
If they've got a time machine, they better take their ass back, 3 days and win a Powerball. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, that would really be a smart thing, but, some people, whatever.
Some people.
All right, thanks, everybody. Reach out, let us know what's going on, and we will chat with you later.
Remember, dice are fickle bitches. You gonna say Hail Hydra?
I didn't need to. You said it. See, it works. Hail Hydra.
Background music. Flying species. The yellow flying cock. To Ares. Meeting in a black hole. The use of these human works of music is granted under the current Creative Commons license terms and agreements. From the freemusicarchive.org from the artists as listed. Thank you. Goodbye.